that sunshine behind you. So I knew I knew you were not from here.
All righty. Thank you, Kelly. Welcome. Okay, so the next person up is a new person, and I hope I'm gonna get this name right. I got the last name right, but the first name is Inange. Did I say it right?
You did really well. Inange, yes.
Inange. All right. Well, welcome, my darling. I'm sorry we tried to connect, but you know what, you're here now, so that's all that counts.
That's all that matters. So thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry we didn't get to connect directly, Suzette, but thank you for sending me the information to be here. I am here today on behalf of Solid Ground Foundation for Behavioral Services and Solid Ground Behavioral Services, Inc., where we empower youth and families to overcome behavioral health challenges and related stigma in marginalized and underserved communities. We're located here in Blue Island, Illinois. We moved into the old Metropolitan Family Services building a little over a year ago. We have partnered with Illinois State Board of Education to provide free services, community-based services for behavioral health to kiddos for the next 2 years. And we just recently received a United Way grant through our foundation to be able to cover services for residents of Robbins for the next 2 years as well. So we're grateful to be here. We're happy to be making connections with people who are in our community and wanting the same things that we're wanting for the people that we're servicing. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. The next person up is James McCombs. You look familiar to me, James. I don't know where, but you look familiar to me.
Okay, we have to find out where we've crossed paths. Good morning, everyone. My name is James McCombs. I'm an educator with the University of Illinois Extension. I work on the SNAP education team, where we partner with organizations to promote healthy eating and physical activity. And I'm glad to be joining this morning.
Thank you, James. And I think when I was with LAN 56, the BRIN, Blue Island Robbins Neighborhood Network, I think that's it. All right, next up is Olivia. I'm sorry I didn't have your email, Olivia, but hey, I'm glad you're here. So come on.
Hi, good morning. I am from Metropolitan Family Services. I'm a nurse home visitor for the Nurse Family Partnership Program. I'm excited to be here with y'all today, and thanks for having me.
Thank you. Welcome. Next up, we have Callie. Hey, Callie. Happy New Year to you, my darling.
Hey, Happy New Year. I'm Kelly Tempermina. I'm the nurse supervisor of the Nurse Family Partnership Program at Metropolitan Family Services. So Olivia is my nurse. We are a nurse home visiting program for low-income first-time moms. We enroll them in their pregnancy and follow them until their baby is 2 years old.
Thank you. Welcome, Kelly. Glad you could make it. Next up is Diamond Ross. And Diamond, I am so sorry I didn't connect with you before the holiday, but that's all right because we got you now.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. Thank you, Ms. Suzette, for having me today. I'm Diamond Ross. I'm a health educator at the Cook County Department of Public Health through our Healthy Homes program. I educate families in suburban Cook County around the hazards of lead poisoning for homes where there are pregnant women and children under the age of 6. And I approve and qualify families for our grant services. Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, welcome. And you know what? And you have people on here that work with pregnant women, so make the connections. Next up, we have Miss Tiffany. You know, I was looking for your email, Tiffany, and I couldn't find it last night, but I'm glad you're joining us. Somebody.
Yeah, I got the email from I don't know who sent it. I thought Kim sends it out.
Okay. All right.
But good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. I am Tiffany Fincher, and I work in parent support and community engagement with Madison School District 162. So glad to be on the call this morning.
All right. And welcome, my darling. So Kristen, I guess we're going to try this again. Kristen Hadley. Kristen? Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
My Kristen Hadley. I read several heads. I got enough for profit outlet myself with CPN ADHD networking group. We are under the umbrella of Family to Family for Children Mental Health. I'm also aligned with COPE, and that's all.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Thank you so very much. Glad you connected. Next up, we have Tamiko Dockery.
Hello.
Tamiko,
Hi, Suzette, and good morning, everyone.
Hey.
Happy New Year. I'm Tamiko Dockery with the Office of Business Development and Marketing for Heart Grove Behavioral Health Systems and Garfield Park Behavioral Hospital. It's good to see everyone.
Well, welcome, my darling. Welcome, welcome. Next up, we have Sandra Sun. And welcome, Sandra.
Thank you for having me. So my name is pronounced Sandhya. But you
I'm sorry. Well, you know what?
I have it's not your fault. I have a trickster name.
Okay.
Somebody forgot to put the accents in there.
Okay.
But I am a social media marketer, content creator, and I'm also a shamanic Reiki practitioner. And so I'm here to contribute to communications to see how best I can help. And I'm happy to be here and learn more from you all.
Thank you. And welcome, my darling.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Hawkins.
I'm here. I'm sorry. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. My name is Faith Hawkins. I work with Book, building our own community over in Dalton. I'm the new case manager.
Okay. Well, welcome. Welcome. I'm glad you can join us because, you know,
Thank you.
Dalton is one of our local service areas. So welcome. Next up, we have Dr. Tamara Young. Dr. Young.
Good morning, everyone. How are you? I'm Dr. Tamara Young. I'm the Director of Student Services over at Lincoln Elementary School. I am also a Calumet City Lion member. I am the District 1A Lions Quest Chair, and I am associate member of COPE. And I am happy to be here amongst all of these great people networking.
All right. So thank you, Dr. Young. And I think the last person we have is John Patterson. I think that's the last one on the, there he is.
Good morning. My name is John Patterson. I am the DCFS Family Advocacy Center Outreach Coordinator for Cook County.
Well, welcome, John, and a happy new year to you.
Thank you.
All right, so welcome everybody. Once again, my name is Suzette Logan, and I am your host. And this is the National Provider Network LAN 53. So the National Provider Network LAN 53 brings together organizations, schools, and agencies to support the community, local and national. And we are a professional network aimed at breaking down barriers and erasing barriers to education, health, physical and mental, and supporting economic stability for youth and their families. So each month we come together and we strive to advance our mission of bridging the gap between local community experts and bringing together those experts with state and federal partners to erase the disparities in economic and health outcomes in the US. So let me just give, because I know there's a lot of new people here, let me give you some information about the National Provider Network. The National Provider Network began as a regional meeting of community-based providers known as Local Area Network, LAN 53. So LAN 53 served children and families through the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services in the South Cook region of Illinois. And this region includes 4 townships, Rich, Bremen, Thornton, and Bloom, as well as 4 communities, Harvey, Riverdale, Calumet City, and Dalton. And then in 2019, Family to Family Federation for Children's Mental Health joined LAN 53 as a lead agency with the task of strengthening organizational structures, and developing human and financial resources to grow the network. So then in 2020, the Lions Club International Foundation joined the network, and it provides funding through LAN 53 for social and emotional learning, a social and emotional learning curriculum, training for schools and organizations. So during the COVID pandemic, the need for intellectual, strategic, and compassionate conversations around access to basic human resources and mental health impact of the pandemic, we expanded the geographical boundaries of LAN 53. And with the participation of Lions Club members, as far as Nigeria, we have been reaching out to members to consider all kinds of agencies and organizations across the globe. And in 2022, which was last year, LAN 53 was rebranded as the National Provider Network. Now, you will often hear me say National Provider Network LAN 53 because a lot of people will not know about National Provider Network, but they do understand about LAN 53. So to that end, globally, we have a person from Indiana, that would be Lion Charlie Short, who is the state membership chair and the past state vision chair for Lions of Indiana. And Charlie is going to speak to us today about exploring the connection between vision and the academic performance. Charlie, it's all yours, my brother.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Suzette.
You're welcome.
You looked fabulous when you were on the video earlier, but you're just going to have to accept the compliment from all of us and go from there, I guess, the technical difficulties being what they are. Good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to be with you today, especially those of you that are working directly with clients and are working in the public health sphere. I come to this position from a variety of different jobs and backgrounds. I grew up in a shop. My parents had a little retail business. I have been a private banker and trust manager. I've been an investment manager. I've been an industrial process consultant for financial firms for many years. But about 20 years ago, I ran into a fellow that was doing vision screening in Indiana. And this is the outgrowth of this program. Over the last 15 years, Indiana Lions have screened over 1.5 million children for vision issues. And I wanted to share not only what we do, but how we do it and what we've discovered. Vision health problems, honestly, are a terribly underdiagnosed and easily treated problem that a lot of kids have that they can't tell you about because they don't know that they have a vision issue. And unless we're on our toes and watching for them, they slide through the cracks. So let's start off on the first slide, Kim, and we'll just get right to it. All right, like one of my friends says, what's the matter? What's the problem here? The truth is that based on my efforts, and I'm not a professional eye care person, I don't have a license. This is not, I'm not speaking from a legal position as a provider. Let's make that clear. But 1 in 4 school-age kids can't see well enough to learn. This means they can't see the board. They may have a significant vision problem that distorts their vision. They may have a problem that allows them to see middle distance, but not near or far. They may also have other issues surrounding tracking moving objects or other things that really cause some significant learning barriers. This, in my opinion, is probably the single largest unknown thing that is causing so many of our schools so much grief and difficulty, and we can fix this. It's not hard. The problem is that so much of our education, unless you're in a specific curriculum that is designed to downplay visual learning styles and visual learning content, 60 to 80% of it is visually based. Reading, stuff that's on the board, stuff that's on your tablet, stuff that is information that is being shared to you with flashcards or other momentary things that kids sometimes have difficulty focusing on. This is what we're missing. And the kid can't tell you what the kid is missing because they don't know. We have a very dynamic visual environment in schools and classrooms and childhood in general right now. I mean, many of us remember a day when the iPad didn't exist. Many of us remember a day when the internet didn't exist, and our visual content and our visual demands were much lower. Now we are approaching a point where we have a hyper visual approach to life, and that impairment, that little bit of impairment, really limits participation in activities and causes some significant separations from things that are going on around them. Hit me.
Kim.
Next slide, Kim. Thank you. Hit me, dealer. All right. Why? Like dental, vision care has gotten out of the mainstream of medical care. Your pediatrician is generally not interested in not prioritizing vision. They're looking for communicable diseases. They're looking for hernias. They're looking for damage and bruises and broken stuff. They are dealing with everything from about here down. And, just my personal experience, I had a childhood physical every single year, all the way through to about 7th grade, and they never caught any of my vision problems at any point. That had to come from another source. The separation of vision tends to mean that it's A, more expensive, and B, it's difficult to get people's time oriented to get kids into treatment. The second thing is that in some states, and in many states, we don't have a situation where the eye doctors go to your school and do a big test and everybody gets better. Well, the reason for that is professional liability. If anything is missed, they didn't catch that kid's problem, it's on them. And that's why we've seen the professionals basically abandon these kinds of large scale things in favor of doing it better within their own offices and staying more accurate to the craft. We have insurance issues. Many times we have state and county programs or township programs in Indiana that just simply aren't able to help people with treatment because it's not within their purvey. And lastly, but not leastly, the biggest barrier to detection is simply the kid can't tell you what the kid doesn't know. Next slide. It doesn't have to be this way. I hate to read my slides, but it's true. It doesn't have to be that way. A simple vision screening at just about any childhood age can detect problems if they're there. And most of the childhood vision problems that we actually see are very easy to treat. The outcomes are almost 100% positive every single time. It's cheap to do, and training is a breeze. And if you're not doing it within your agencies or groups, you should consider partnering up to be able to deliver this. Next. Okay, who are the Lions? Okay, for those of you that don't know about Lions, it's easy to know why. We have no budget for marketing, and we are not very good at telling our story. But we are 100 years old. We were originally founded in Indiana and then consolidated into a Chicago-led thing right after the First World War. Helen Keller gave us the mission to help the blind and the deaf, and we have expanded on that mission for many, many years. The white cane with the red tip, the universal independent mobility tool that's used by most visually impaired folks, was invented by the president of the Peoria Lions Club in 1935. We have been involved in hundreds of millions of dollars to produce Braille. We have done everything we can in those areas, and we continue to support blind education and other issues up to our eyebrows. However, we continue to expand this mission, and one of the ways to do this is vision screening and childhood care. We're also very active on diabetic issues, especially around diabetic retinopathy and other problems. We're not a religious organization, we're not a political organization, and we're not a secret society. So we're just a bunch of people that get together under one flag to do public service work. I like to say we're community service without the orange jumpsuit. So very widespread, about 1 million members around the world. Next. All right. First of all, what we do is that we screen for vision problems. We don't diagnose. We're not telling anybody what they have. We're not looking for we're not trying to be jailhouse lawyers. We're simply trying to find problems and pass them along to the trained professionals that can help fix the problem. All of our screening programs are very simple to do. They're generally very low cost, and they have a high effect on the schools and preschools that we work with. So let's talk about the two main programs that are looking for different kinds of problems at different stages of development. Next. First off is Operation KidSight. This program's been around for about 25 years, and we use a specialized camera, either plus optics spot or blink usually, to help detect early childhood eye diseases and problems that are really best corrected at these early ages. Most importantly, what we're looking for is lazy eye or amblyopia, and we're also looking at strabismus or a cross-eyed situation that, unless we get it fixed early, it requires surgery and the pound of cure, so to speak. So when we detect this between 6 months and about 5 to 6 years old, most of these problems can be easily fixed. Some of you may remember people being patched for amblyopia to strengthen the weak eye. We now have a new therapy which is being proven to be very effective using virtual reality goggles. The kids keep them on longer and they get better faster. So there's a lot of movement in these against these things, but if we were able to screen for these two conditions early enough, we could basically eliminate them from the general population in about 10 years. Next screen. The big reason to do KidSight is it's fun. I mean, that's the camera. That's a plus optics camera I'm holding there. This was down in Effingham, Illinois at a convention, and they very cleverly did a Halloween costume contest for all the kids and parents. So the parents came in and got screened, and then the kids got screened on KidSight program. It takes about, I would say, 5 to 10 seconds to screen a child using this type of device. And you'll get something that is about 90% accurate. It's especially accurate for determining large corrective errors, myopia, astigmatism, other things that are very common in children. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is perfect for YMCAs. It's perfect for anywhere where you've got large populations of kids. Kindergarten roundups, play day, parks and rec programs, things like this. Anywhere where you're going to have a large number of very young children, congregating, it's great. Daycares are popular and we like them, but they are very labor intensive because usually kids, they don't have as many kids in each location. So you're kind of on a pogo stick going from one group of 20 kids to another 20 kids, but it's very important that we do that. Next slide. Next up is Project School Site, and this has been the program that I've been most involved with in its expansion in Indiana. Basically in 2008, when I became district governor for West Central Indiana, I made this a priority for our clubs. And I'm very happy to announce that of our 385 clubs, about half of them in Indiana now provide some flavor of school site or kid site or both. We have now screened just about 1.5 million children since 2008. And we have a lot of experience in doing this. But what in Indiana is required is an acuity test, which the camera won't give you. That's the like a 20/20 vision or a 20/30 vision or 20/50 vision. So for those of you that aren't familiar with this, 20/20 simply means that you're seeing something from 20 feet as you should see it at 20 feet. A 20/30 measurement means that you're seeing something at 20 feet that most people you're seeing something at 20 feet that you really should see at 30 or 40 or 50. That second number is as a mark of relative impairment. In Indiana, our standard for all school kids is 20/30, which is deemed good enough to get through. I'm not a fan of that number, but that's what it is. So we take first grade and kids and up that are literate, and we use a cheap and effective chart that is at 10 feet. So you don't need the full 20 feet. And that way you can better hear the child. You can better observe them in terms of their, squints and leans and other problems that they might have. And you're able to better separate an affectation from a real problem. This is very simple to do. It doesn't require rocket surgery, and it isn't hard at all. But in general, in most states, school site is done basically as an ad hoc group that comes in and helps the school nurse comply with the acuity tests. Now, in Illinois, for example, we're not allowed as a volunteer group to come in and screen schools. That's verboten under your state law. However, that varies wildly from state to state, and many states include Lions and other trained volunteer groups specifically as allowed to come in and assist school nurses in school health programs. The AAPOS there is the American Academy of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus, and our medical advisor is Dr. Dan Neely from the IU Medical School, and Dan is the rock star of pediatric ophthalmology pretty much around the world. Next slide, Kim. This is a kid site. This is a school site screener. She was actually part of the Purdue Pre-Optometry Club at one point, and this is the 10-foot chart that we use. It's made by Good Light, which is GOOD-LITE there in suburban Chicago. It is a flip chart, which has a series of different charts on it. So if you have a group of people all doing it, you're not all reading from the same chart. The great thing about this is that we get a lot of testimonials from people. And one of our friends who lives in a relatively rural town north of Lafayette was attending another meeting, and the woman across from her chatted her up about their involvement in Lions. And after a while and a little bit more coffee, she said, "You saved my nephew." And it turns out that their nephew was referred out of one of our vision screenings in 3rd grade. And he had been a consistent discipline problem. He had been very disruptive in class. He had no interest in sports. He could read at a very advanced rate, but he couldn't do very much else. They were actually in process of transferring him into a special education program when we screened him. They took our screening results to the local optometrist, who fitted him with glasses, and a week later he could actually see pretty well for the first time, because he was very severely nearsighted and was simply he went from probably the biggest problem in the entire school to just under he went from the bottom of the class to near the top in less than a semester. He also started to discover this thing called baseball, which he is continuing to play. He's in high school now, and he's really enjoying it. Next slide. Unlike a lot of things in health and human services, where it just seems like we're pushing this enormous rock uphill, if you make an effort in this space, it will provide you a real result. Our effort over here has reduced our referral rates in schools by 40%. 40%. And if you go to the higher grades, 3 and up, it has reduced our continued problems by 70%. It used to be that we had it was relatively flat. We would go into a school and we would screen 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 8th grades. And we would find referral rates start to taper off by the time they got to 8th grade, but they remained very high through the elementary grades. Once we've started doing this and doing this consistently once a year for about 2 hours, it's all it takes for a lot of schools, we've really made a huge dent in the vision health of the schools. Most schools, when we walk in for the first time, end up screening at 20 to 40% of the kids that we screen can't see well enough to pass 20/30. Most of the schools that we have good engagement from school nurses and the administration to say, Mr. and Mrs. Scott, you've got to get your kids in for eye care. That is really working well. And we have one school that went from a 28% referral rate to 7% in about a year and a half. Everybody that we work with, whether it's principals, school nurses, the secretaries at the front desk, whatever, they all really appreciate what we do because they see all of these things in the kids once they get proper eye care. The big thing that we do see too, and I don't have numbers for this because we don't keep this kind of information because we're not HIPAA compliant. We can't keep it. But the bigger reason is that we start to see better academic performance, but we also see more engagement of the children. They work better together. They're not afraid of engaging other kids, and they tend to get picked on a little bit less, which is always a plus. Next slide. So you can do it. Contact your local Lions Club. Again, all of our clubs are independent, so they may or may not offer these services, but that's a good place to start. Reach out for that help and you just might get it. The legal structure of how your state operates is very important. Make sure that we're not acting out of compliance. But the biggest thing that you can do is just be aware and advocate a little bit for vision health and screening around your part of the woods because, frankly, if it's not being done, if you aren't aware that it's being done, it's probably not being done. And unless the kids are mandated to see eye care before they enroll, which is very rare around the country, you're probably going to run the risk of that 20 to 40% undiagnosed, untreated vision problem. And that's just bad for schools all around. Next slide. This is what our teams look like, and I'll be happy to take your questions. This particular school, We Are Ridge Middle School, is about 800 children, and we took them from a 29% referral rate our first year to about 8% 3 years later. It's one of the larger schools in our particular area, but they got very engaged and got behind it once we found out what the problem was. The blue, yeah. Thank you very much.
Oh my God, Charlie, thank you so very much. If people have questions, could you just, if you have questions, could you hold off for a minute because 2 people joined us a little bit later and I want them to just introduce themselves and let you know who they are. The first person is Hector. Hector, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, good morning. Again, thank you for very great information I was hearing. Thank you so much. This is Hector Obregon from Latino Resource Institute of Illinois in the south side of Chicago.
Thank you, Hector, and welcome. Welcome. If you want, you could put your information into the chat box. And thank you for coming. Thank you for John Patterson inviting you. And yeah, put your email address in the chat box, and then we'll also invite you next month. But thank you so very much.
Awesomeness. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay. And then the next person is Raylette Johnson. Ms. Johnson. Okay, Ms. Johnson, Raylette. All right, so, she's just gonna have to put her information into the chat box. But anyway, so Charlie, wonderful presentation. Thank you so very much. Oh, and then I'm sorry, one more thing. And then another person that joined us is Marianne. Marianne, welcome, darling. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good morning. I'm Marianne Beathis, president of NAMI South Suburbs of Chicago.
All right, thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And I don't know Ms. Johnson, but she could put her information in the chat box. But anyway, so thank you. Thank you, Charlie. And if you have questions, Charlie has put his information in the chat box. But if you have information, if you have questions right now, feel free to ask Charlie questions right now. No?
Charlie, quick question.
Yeah.
So when we see the Lions Club boxes at different locations requesting us to turn in old glasses, and I have a few pair that I need to turn in, what are they most interested in, the frames or the lens?
Great question. Thank you. We're interested in complete sets of glasses. They can be prescription, they can be sunglasses, they can be safety glasses, anything like that. Those glasses are accepted and completely rehabbed to as new condition. Then we bag them, tag them, and measure them, and they end up going largely to missions overseas. We cannot redistribute a prescription item within most of the United States.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah, we just to give you an idea, an air freight container contains about 35,000 pairs of glasses, and we will take a full inventory to, say, Central Mexico, and we will have people line up for 2 days, and they'll camp out like, where you're going to go see a rock show or something, and they will wait very patiently because it's the only chance they have at eye care in many cases. But
wow.
Yeah, so those collection boxes still remain very important for our international efforts.
All righty.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else? Thank you, Dr. Ruby. Anybody else have a question for Charlie? Okay, Geraldine has a question for Charlie.
So Charlie, I'm like getting really, really choked up about this because my daughter does have strabismus, and it definitely has an effect on her learning, being able to attend. And so I guess my question is, what can we do? I'm in Illinois, so I'm in that state that doesn't allow you all to come in and help with the schools. But what can parents or community members do to better educate the community about issues like strabismus and amblyopia, because they're not typical vision issues? And so I'm fighting with the school district because they keep saying she doesn't have a visual impairment. And I'm like, she does have a visual impairment. She is a visual impairment and it is treatable. I had to pay out of pocket like $6,000 for her to have the vision therapy, the visual, the virtual reality vision therapy. And, that's a lot of money.
It sure is.
I have not recovered from that investment. And, I just if it could be added into her IEP, and if they could pay for her to go to vision therapy, like she's now reading age appropriate thanks to the vision therapy, but her math skills are still suffering because she doesn't have visual closure. And so just what can we do to help educate our politicians and educate the educational people to understand that we could really improve education if we give kids the visual support and therapies that they need. They only give you vision services if you have low vision. She doesn't have low vision.
Correct.
So she's not educationally visually impaired.
Okay, let me deal with the first thing first. Any vision condition that is diagnosed by, and especially in children, especially something like amblyopia or strabismus, is a serious visual handicap unless it can be fully corrected. And most of the time, you know, if you're dealing with either one of those things, you're dealing with ophthalmology, not optometry. You're dealing with a different level of care. To say that it's not really all that common is not true. We see about 5 to 7% of all of our preschool kids screen out for some type of early childhood problem. And frankly, we're seeing a big spike in diagnosis of dyslexia in children, and it turns out they're really not dyslexic, they just can't see well. And so the best thing that we can do, honestly, is carry this thing forward and say, what's your school's vision assistance program? How can we make sure that every kid in school can see well enough to learn? I have testified before school boards. I have testified before state agencies and other things in terms of simple programs that can be instituted to do this. But to be honest with you, the schools are at a point right now where they're all like, they've got way too much on their plates. Doesn't matter what school corporation around the world you're in, we're all recovering from the pandemic. There's a lot of catch-up work to be done. And this is like just one more thing that they need to do. We think it's important enough to engage, you know, a kind of a part, you know, a screening group, and make that a part of your school's support network. It doesn't have to be within the walls of the school, but screening preschool kids, I think, is really where the best value is for public health. And this is so important because a condition like your child's has is not really, once you get past about 5, 6 years old, it's real hard to fix. But if you catch it early enough, you know, you're in good shape. Just talk it up. I think that's the best thing you can do.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you so much. You know, I want to just put this out there that we at National Provider Network, LAN 53, we're starting the wraparound program again. And Kim, after Sinead does her presentation, Kim's going to speak a little bit about that. But then also too, Geraldine, if you have additional questions for Charlie, I'm sure Charlie will put his information in the chat box, and I'm sure he will not have a problem with you contacting him. Okay. All righty. So next up, a new thing that we're having for 2023, I came up with this, the mental health spotlight. And so each month we're going to have someone to speak in the mental health spotlight. And this month we have Miss Shanae Weems, and Shanae is from River Edge Hospital, and she is a MHRM, which means Masters in Human Resources Manager. So Shanae is going to talk a little bit about mental health and also about the hospital services they provide and give information to the group. So Shanae, it's all yours, darling.
Good morning, everybody. So I am Preparing the screen. Hold on 1 second. I need to go ahead and share it out. All right. So thank you for the introduction, Suzette. As she mentioned, I will be just kind of covering and highlighting River Edge and our services and how to access our services. And you all learn more about River Edge. For many of you on the screen, I know that River Edge is not new to you. So hopefully you learned something new about our services and how to access it and make referrals. I am the community liaison, and specifically I cover the south side of Chicago and south suburbs. However, we have a team that covers the city of Chicago and state of Illinois, to be honest. On the screen there, you'll see some of the things that I'll be covering during this presentation. Talking about the services and programs as mentioned, going over the population that we service, becoming aware of the intake process and how to access our services, and then introducing you guys to Universal Health Services, which is the umbrella organization for River Edge and many of the mental health hospitals in the state of Illinois, specifically in Chicago. As you'll see on your screen with the flyer, there's about 6 hospitals, including River Edge, that fall under this umbrella. In the city of Chicago, most know of Garfield Park Hospital and Hargrove Hospital, which service children and adolescents, and then Hargrove service adults. And then you have more downstate, the hospitals Lincoln Park Prairie and the Pavilion, that also focus on children and adolescents, and the Pavilion services children, adolescents, young adults, and adults. And then you have River Edge and Streamwood Behavioral Health Services, or Health Hospital, I'm sorry. One thing to note about River Edge is that we service the full lifespan, and that's children starting at as young as age 3 through adult senior. That is one of the distinct, unique services that River Edge has to offer, is the fact that we service the geriatric population. All 6 of the hospitals, we work together in accessing and getting referrals. There is a little bit of friendly competition at times because, it's business, but at the end of the day, the main point is to get the services that's needed. So if there's a referral that's coming to River Edge and bed availability isn't there, we begin to reach out to other hospitals that we know meet the needs within the UHS umbrella. Something a little bit more about River Edge is that we are 60 years old in operation. The hospital started operation in 1963. Right now, we're currently the largest freestanding psychiatric hospital in the state of Illinois. And as I stated, we service the full state. We're located in the west suburban area of Forest Park, just outside of Maywood. So we are not centrally located. However, like I said, we service the state of Illinois, city of Chicago. We currently have a 210 bed capacity, where that's the number of bed capacity that we have. However, with the state of mental health right now, we generally operate at about 130 to 150 bed capacity. And that's based on the acuity level of the floor, the staffing, patient ratio on the units, things like that dictates how we're going to function and operate. So while we have a 210 bed capacity, we maintain around 130 to 150. And then one thing to note about our hospital is that we are not a seclusion or restraint hospital. We do use trauma-informed care and practices in order to engage with our clients. So shared beliefs, we believe in healing and recovery. We believe in every individual has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. We believe in providing quality care in a compassionate and therapeutic manner. We take these beliefs very seriously in how we engage with from the start of the referral all the way through the discharge and maintaining with our clients. So our services, we have the traditional inpatient services, which I'll go a little bit more in detail with all of these services. Inpatient services, outpatient services, which includes partial hospitalizations for children and adolescents. Intensive outpatient services, which I'll talk a little bit more about, and then your traditional outpatient service, which just means your traditional therapy, the weekly 1 hour a week session with the therapist. We provide no cost level of assessment, level of care assessments. So that's your initial assessment to understand and get an idea of where the patient or individual is in their mental health needs. We provide medication management for children, adolescents, and adults. And then we also have a residential treatment center for teen boys dealing with sexually aggressive behaviors. And we provide community education. There are 2 ways that we offer community education. Some of you may be familiar with our Rise and Learn program, where we have monthly workshops in partnership with CIS communities and schools to offer various program training opportunities and CEUs to clinicians every month. I'll be at the end of this presentation, I'll actually show you guys the one for February that we'll be hosting in a couple of weeks. Most of our trainings are at minimal cost, at minimum 10 for the Rise and Learns, and they're still currently virtual. And then another way that we offer community education is through our River Edge University community workshops. These workshops are free to community agencies, schools. We have presentations that we'll be presenting in libraries, in any entity outside of the hospital that wants to have community, have mental health awareness workshops. Some of the workshops include like stress management and coping strategies, suicide education and prevention, race and trauma, for supporting students and families, mental health 101. We just did a self-care workshop for educators at the University of Chicago Woodlawn campus yesterday. And these workshops are free. So these are this is another way to get information out there around mental health support and awareness. So when we talk about an inpatient program, this is your traditional hospital stay. This is a short-term stay on average of 7 to 14 days. We are not a long-term hospital facility. One thing to note about River Edge is that we are not a medical surgery center. So if there's medical needs that an individual have, it must be cleared. Adults must be cleared medically in order to be admitted into our hospital for services. And then if there are medical needs that arise throughout, we are in partnership with Loyola Hospital, which is right down the street from us, to manage those things. So we're talking cardiac arrest or any type of medical emergencies that come into play. We have 7 units throughout the hospital servicing, again, children and adolescents. So when we talk about our children and adolescents floor, children started again at age 3 to 12. They participate in child-focused therapeutic strategies, which I'll talk a little bit more about. They have family engagement opportunities. We used to have family visitation opportunities prior to COVID, but since COVID, those family visitations have been paused, and they're still on pause, but they are able to communicate with families through the telephone. So they're able to talk to their family members and things like that. We also partner with the schools that the children and adolescents are attending in order to get information about their schoolwork, to keep them on track. Each participant or each unit has an hour of education where they're able to still engage and stay on track academically. When I first started at River Edge, I had the opportunity to observe on the adolescent girls floor. And during that time, they were in group. They were, doing the education part. And I was able to witness one of the young ladies who may have been I think she was a senior. She was, we had the Chromebooks that they were able to access on Chrome. And she was, really concerned about keeping up with her work and staying on track for graduation. And I just, that was what I witnessed in our observation for the conversation. So they all had time where they kind of rotated. It was like 4 or 5 laptops. They rotated out, did the work that they needed to do in that time frame, and then went back to other assignments if they didn't have to be on the computer. So this is an opportunity. Like I said, we partner with the education system in order to still be able to keep the young people on track while they are receiving services from us. We have bilingual staff on all units and in the treatment teams. When we talk about bilingual, we do mean English and Spanish speaking, but we also have, if necessary, a translation service that is HIPAA compliant in order to help provide services to individuals that need it as well. So now we talk about our outpatient services. Partial hospitalization is a service for children and adolescents, specifically Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This gives them this is for individuals that mental health needs. They either have stepped down from our inpatient programming to partial hospitalization, or initial entry into the admittance into the hospital is through partial hospitalization programming. Their mental health needs are not as acute in order to be for inpatient stay. So they come to the hospital Monday through Friday during that time frame where they're receiving education and therapeutic services throughout that school day. They, for whatever reason, are unable to maintain within the classroom setting. So we bring them out of the classroom setting into the hospital setting to address their mental health needs, and also still give them the education that they need in order to stay on track. Then we move into intensive outpatient services. This is, you have your traditional outpatient services, which I mentioned before was your weekly 1 hour